Hi, pleased to meet you all. I'm Kenyan too. I'm an alien so over here. So I'd just quite like to know where this collaboration originated from. Did you, because there was a lady earlier here introducing the World Cinema Fund, that they bring people together. Is that through them that this collaboration came about? Thank you.
Yeah, well, the story of the workshops is a bit longer. There's a German director called Tom Tikva, and his wife was doing various projects in Kenya. And when he found out about it, he went over and fell in love with the country and also wanted to do something. And as he's coming, his background is film, of course, as he is a filmmaker. He then started to do a film called Soul Boy, and this film was quite successful. It has traveled a lot of festivals, and during this traveling festivals, the idea came up to do something more, let's say, substantial, come back again and again, which has then led to founding this initiative together with Deutsche Welle and One Fine Day Films. We're based here in Berlin. Deutsche Welle is a German organization operating around the world, and we're working with a Kenyan partner. They're based in Nairobi, and we're currently preparing our third workshop in Nairobi, and Viva has been the fourth film that we have shot within the frame of this initiative.
Hi guys. So what is the legacy of this initiative? What's the legacy?
In terms of what?
What is this? What is the sustainability? What's the sustainable value to the Nairobi up and coming filmmakers? What? Sorry.
Maybe say something about how you got to know initiative, what you think it has done in the past.
How I got to know about the initiative was I watched Soul Boy once, and thereafter I was able to watch Nairobi Half-Life as well. And from that very successful film, I was very curious to find out more. And of course, I visited their website. They're actually online. And once I visited their website, I got to find out they actually have an annual workshop. I applied. I've actually applied twice, and of course I didn't get in the first time. It's very competitive, actually. It's I would say it's one of the top-end filming workshops that I know of. And it was very competitive the first time, but the second time I got in. And for 2 weeks, we were able to be mentored. There are different departments in the workshop, and we had directors from various African countries, at least 8 in my class, and we were mentored for 2 weeks by Sven here, who's a very able, fantastic filmmaker, I must say. And there are many others, of course, but after those 2 weeks, I was lucky to be chosen to be the director of the next film, because that's how it works. One of the directors in part of that class is going to be chosen to direct the next movie, and I was lucky to be chosen. And the script of this movie, like I'm talking about Veve right now, is actually a Kenyan story. It's based on what shall I call it, if I may summarize. It's the story of various characters who are trying to find themselves around the business of a plant called Mira, or as you might know it, cat or chat or something. It's a stimulant that you chew. And so it's a very intricate world, and we follow the stories of these individuals. And personally, as a director mentee, if that's a word, I have learned a lot, because I've been working on this for, I don't know, close to a year now, maybe, something like that, ever since I got in. And we've shot the movie, we are currently editing it, but for me, it's a matter of being able to tell a Kenyan story from a filmmaker's perspective on another level. This is my first feature film. I've done a short film, shot in Uganda in 2010, but this feature film definitely has elevated my abilities as a director. I've learned so much from Sven, who has directing experience after doing quite a number of movies, and he's been able to sharpen my skills as a director. And one thing that's very unique with this workshop is, as much as you have mentors, they are able to give you the room to make your own decisions, to tell your own story. And they will advise you on the decisions you make, but ultimately it's your movie that you're telling, it's your story that you're telling. And this collaboration, as much as you could say it's It's between German and Kenyans. We do have other African countries involved, and they're essentially trying to uplift the lot of African filmmakers, because the truth is, in Africa we don't have as much structures, as much financing, as much skill. Even film schools are very rare, and we need that capacity, and they're in the business of building that capacity and letting you grow wings and fly. And I think that's the ultimate legacy of this whole institution, that they are going to give African filmmakers wings to fly and make more movies in the continent. Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you for that short excursion. Are you getting any support from the government, Kenyan government, on these initiatives? Because, did I understand correctly, Deutsche Welle is in on board on this?
Yes, exactly. So
Okay.
our partners are mainly, our biggest partner is Deutsche Welle. That's a German organization that is operating around the world. Then we're working with German classical film funds. There we have one partner on board, which is Filmfund North Rhine-Westphalia, and we collaborate with Hubert Bahl's fund, or we have collaborated for certain films, but there is no Kenyan governmental money on board in this case.
I see. It was a pity, because it's a question that had come on the floor earlier.
Hello, my name is Paul. I would like to know the implication of this project in terms of what impact it will have on the life of the people in Kenya, or what projects you're doing, what impact it will have on the local people in terms of cultural diplomacy, for example. How much economic value is this going to bring to maybe the local people? I don't mean the government. Is there anything? What is the motivation? I mean, you have people that are part of this. It's not just you who is the director, but people acting, or the actors as part of this. And what is going to be the impact of this? You know, sorry, excuse me. Can I have one of the to answer this question?
Okay, fine.
I don't know, talking about motivation, I mean, it's really, I don't know if this helps, or I don't know if this is something you really want to hear. I think 1 year ago at this time, I wasn't really interested in teaching. I wasn't really interested in Kenya or Africa, because I just didn't know it. I've never touched that continent. And I really just got this call that they were looking for somebody to teach during this workshop. And I thought, okay, let's see what's going to happen. And for me, this whole thing was more really a surprise, getting into something I barely knew before, you know, something really new. And I'm still trying to put my finger on it, what it means in terms of cultural diplomacy. For me, it really more was something, I met this bunch of people being interested in movies and film, and it was a very nice 2 weeks and very good exchange of ideas, of stuff. And now for me, it more feels like helping a cool guy who I think is pretty talented, and a friend, you know, to get a film done, to make this work, and try to be a good coach to everything that's going to happen. And of course, you know, knowing now, kind of knowing Kenya a little bit and the continent, and it's still interesting for me. I'm still exploring. It's like the whole thing feels right now a little bit like a gift that I've never asked for, you know, that I'm knowing things, but it's, but I think I always rely on the personal stuff, like really, helping good people or interested people in making a movie, and not so much in, how cultural exchange should happen. It's,
So one more follow-up question, and I would like you to respond to the question as well. What is the scope of this help? Is it just to give the knowledge to your friend and maybe other interested persons, or you would like to also give him the equipment he would need once he's done with all the learning you need to give him? Yeah. You get the point I'm making? Let me stand up. I have asked this question before. You know, many good-minded, Westerners, they go to Africa to get some interested young men who want to do films in Africa, and they give them the knowledge. But they don't have the cameras to go on with the business. They have the knowledge, but they don't have the tools. Are you hoping to make the funds available for him to have all it takes to.
Can I say something to that?
Yes, please, definitely.
I'm the producer of that. My experience, I'm in the selection committee to also select the applicants, and we have over 500 applicants, and we just completed the selection process. My understanding and what I see from applicants we got from more than 30 countries this year is they have equipment, but they don't have the knowledge what you can do with it. They do a lot of video, especially in Kenya. I mean, we're also talking here about Africa as if it's a country. Africa, Kenya is on a very different place than, let's say, Tanzania or Ethiopia or Nigeria or Cameroon or Egypt. And from the applicants, we get a pretty good overview of where which country is. Because, for example, Ethiopia, it's really fascinating. You get they have very little means, I would say sometimes, but it's fantastic what they submit. I mean, it's unbelievable. The little artistic, it's almost like, where is this country? Why is nobody seeing that? It's amazing. And it's really not about, we are not about the techniques. I mean, of course, it's nice to go to a grading suite in Berlin and have really good color correction. But in the end, I mean, you today saw the film in a not so good quality. And at the end of the day, it's the story, it's the film, the art of filmmaking which counts, which makes a good film. And ours is really about training. And the rest is infrastructure and if, as long as, look, Nairobi Half-Life, it's our second feature film, has been the first film which has ever been entered from Kenya to the Oscars. Now, you can only make a change, also politically, if you show them what is out there. If you don't make the films, if you only keep talking about films, you will not make a change. And we are filmmakers, we are not politicians, we are not diplomats, we are not, look, all the people who are sitting here up front, we have no background of NGOs. We all either went to film school or we work here, we do films. And that's what we do, we meet other filmmakers. And of course there are certain things which come with it, but it also brings an attention with it. So for example now, Ari of course is thinking of donating a camera to the project, but that's not what it necessarily takes, It's not about state-of-the-art equipment, it's a profound understanding of what is out there and what we can see during that. 2 years ago we had a committee from the Academy, the ones who hand out the Oscars. So we had American filmmakers, we had European filmmakers, and we had African filmmakers. And what was pretty clear in the first second was neither the American nor the European is the African model. It's a different one. And whatever that is, and we do what we do, we are all part of it, but there's a bigger picture and there's more out there. And isn't it great that now film festivals have Soul Boy and Nairobi Half-Life and Something Necessary and very soon Veve, besides movies like Amour and it's one way of looking at it. After Nairobi Half-Life, it's a crime story. We got a lot of questions. Yes, but you depict Kenya in a very bad way. We are not a tourism organization, and we are not selling a country, and it's not our job to do that. We are telling one story of one view, and there are many other views, and all we can do is hoping that many people follow the footsteps. The more the merrier, and tell their own story.
Just to add on something about that, the previous predecessors or people who've been into the workshops, who we actually learnt about the workshop from. Personally, I've seen some of them get, after the training, they get to be empowered, because the essence of the workshops is to empower people or to empower upcoming young filmmakers to be better filmmakers and to tell stories in a proper way. And if we don't tell our stories as Africans, who will then? So the bottom line is we get the knowledge and then we use it in making films. And I've seen people who are in the workshops before. Some of them are doing they've gotten they've gotten more opportunities to do films, other films, and even do the simplest of stories because of the exposure they got from these workshops. So basically the idea is to empower us to tell our own stories. Yes.
Fascinating stuff. I'm always interested. I'm a filmmaker myself, and director and editor myself, and I'm trained in English, training in Ravensbourne, which is a world-class institution in London. And the key question I'm always asking is, who actually owns intellectual property of all this work that's been produced?
Well, it's actually a very easy one. It is owned by the company that is producing the films, and which, well, one could discuss, but as basically this property is used to also bring the films out there and cover the costs of that. We're kind of exploiting the films in order to bring them out there, to release them, and have them exposed as much as possible. So it's One Fine Day Films.
Any more questions?
No, just I would like somebody else to also comment on the relationship between this filmmaking and cultural diplomacy in Africa. I mean, you were very sincere. I mean, trying to say that you just came into the story with a good intention, in trying to understand, of course, how it relates to cultural diplomacy in Africa. But can somebody tell us, I mean, among the panel, what is the relationship, at least in terms of cultural diplomacy in Africa? I mean, filmmaking. What impact will it have? No. Yeah, cultural diplomacy. It's the use of cultural means in fostering peace building and mutuality among cultures or nations. Yeah. So how does it relate to filmmaking and cultural diplomacy?
I think I can answer that because I have a background in diplomacy. And what's happening with the movies, with Something Necessary, you just saw it addressed the post-election violence in Kenya in 2007. And from the issues that come out, we know that art is used as a means to create social change. And with people acting out what's happening in society, it creates the awareness among people. And people get to know what's happening on the ground. Now you get to see the perspective of one woman who suffered because she was one tribe and her husband was the other tribe. It ended in the husband getting killed. So in terms of diplomacy and cultural exchange, we see that we get to see the small intricacies that affect different tribes. And once people speak about issues, we create the awareness, and this awareness is what we can transform into something better. Because there's some things that are unspeakable. People don't talk about them. But once filmmakers do it, and you see what's in the basic relationships among people, then we can work from that. And this movie exposed that. Also with the other movie, Nairobi Half-Life. I don't know if you got the chance to watch it, but it shows now about crime. And also someone coming from the village and coming to the cities, and there was lack of employment, and he's forced into crime. And you see, this shows there's a discrepancy in the system. The system isn't working. So this is being brought out. And people, it depends on what you want to see in a film, because if you want to criticize, you can also criticize, because people are like, Kenya is not like this, this is this. But the issue remains that this person came, and since the structure is not in a way where the person can advance, so the person is forced into crime. So when we relate the whole movie, also another point I can say with cultural diplomacy is during the workshops we see people from different countries. People from different countries meet, and this is the time it becomes a cocktail of cultures, And this is a chance for people to exchange their experiences. Someone from Ethiopia can tell someone from Kenya what's happening. Then you create this diplomacy, because you have to respect every person's culture. You have to know each other. You have to know yourself, know other people, so that you can relate. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah.
No, just a question about where these movies are, will be shown, like just in, I don't know, in the Oscar or Cannes or Berlin, or also in Africa. I mean, really going in deeper in the society and showing this actually to the people, because I think that is cultural diplomacy more than going abroad and bringing, because, yeah, I think it's more, but I'm asking just a question.
Well, I can answer that. Well, yeah, it's you're right to ask that. So it actually started with Soul Boy going out there, and then we had Nairobi Half-Life, and Nairobi Half-Life has opened a lot of doors for us in Kenya. It was it was not only the first Oscar entry ever, not Oscar entry candidate ever, but it was also the most successful Kenyan film in cinema, and it has been a long runner for 6 months, and it was full for in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, which was really crazy, because people normally don't go so much to cinemas. They have less screens than we do have over here in Europe. So this is how it started, and there was a great awareness for the film itself in the country. Then we're trying things like putting up cinema tours, so you're having a theatrical tour, you're bringing the film by different means to maybe areas that don't have a screen, but you have to be inventive, because there is areas that, like Tanzania, for instance, has probably 40 screens in total. If we look at thousands of screens in Germany, of course, then you have to have different ideas. But of course, the first and main idea is to show the films there where they are made, and there's a lot of Kenyans who want to see them and who are asking for it, and we're making that possible, of course.
Yes, you know, it's ironic. I don't know if you know it or not, but there's a refugee camp here in Berlin. A lot of African refugees, and they've occupied a space at the Iranian Platz. And I'm sure there's some Kenyans there, but nonetheless, most of them are African. I'd like you to maybe kind of like speak to the question of what effect, if you talk about crime, and a lot of the movies have this underlying theme, especially from the West, of crime. You know, what effect does that have? What impact does that have on the youth? And what effect does it have on you? Then again, your experiences with making films, you know, the difficulties, some of the technical and emotional, or what have you. I'm a filmmaker myself, and I'm used to doing it all, cutting, directing, and filming, you know, just because of budget considerations sometimes, or just because I got my own project and I want to see it through, and I'm not going to ask anybody for anything. Does that play a role? Do you get out there and do the maverick thing? What are some of the good things that happen and some of the bad things that happen in the course of dealing with this film, and how has it been accepted also in Kenya itself? Did you get all those?
So maybe you guys want to start about crime, the crime topics. I would leave that to the Nairobians.
Are you essentially referring to if a movie depicts crime, what's the impact of it on its viewers, especially the African audience or the Kenyan audience?
I assume that the people who are coming from the country to the city, which is a phenomenon that in a lot of countries, you know, that they, especially today, that they see the Western movies, they see the Hollywood movies, you know. So what effect does that have on you, on them? How does that impact on society? How does that impact on your film? But you raised the question of crime.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you know it or not, but in America, we have 25% of the world's prison population is in America. And 75% of those people are black men.
Interesting perspectives. I'll just give my thoughts. Maybe other guys can also give their thoughts as well on the same thing. When I watch, Western movies have a lot of crime. And my personal perspective is that I watch it mostly for enjoyment. I don't watch it to take ideas from them or to look at how crimes was committed and so on. But I would say one thing, that in Africa, especially in Kenya, let me just take Nairobi Half-Life for an example. We do have a crime issue, definitely. That's a fact. And actually, recently, the levels actually went up by quite a percentage. But ultimately, the question is, if we show crime, does that mean we are encouraging it or we are discouraging it? And Nairobi Half-Life had a special case in the sense that we had the whole movie is essentially you could call a gangster film. And when people watched it, I remember one of the critics said that we are depicting Nairobi negatively and that we are talking about crime and that fine, Nairobi does have crime, but it does have other positive things about it. But my take on that is that it did not really necessarily raise the levels of crime. Like, for instance, if you talk about a movie like Clockwork Orange back in the 70s or 80s, which apparently influenced people to commit crimes. But I think the debate of crime should be taken to films. I mean, films need to talk about crime. They need to talk about it because it's something that's ongoing. And we have to challenge ourselves in terms of what are the issues we want to show and what should we not show, okay? And if we shy away from showing crime, that does not negate the fact that we actually have a problem. And I think we should keep talking about crime if it's there. But we don't have to necessarily cover it in every movie that we make. We don't have to make crimes this kind of fancy thing that we keep showing in each movie that we make, essentially. That's what I would say about that. Maybe you have something else to add.
I actually don't know, like, if you do a movie, you can't predict what people are going to take from it. Like, if you watch something, it depends from someone's perspective. And you can't actually control if someone watches the movie and like, oh my God, this is a good idea, I can rob a bank. That one you can't predict. So what you, as a filmmaker, as an actor, as anyone involved in the movie, what you can do is try depict the situation, give your message clearly, and it's like you're giving your message to the world. And what they choose to do with it now, it's up to them, because you can't control that.
I think filmmakers definitely do have a responsibility. Just to add on to what he said, we do definitely have a responsibility in terms of how we depict issues of crime. That's for sure. But the question is, and just to add on to what he said, the question is, do we necessarily have to make it a moral question? Do we have to make it a moral question, or are we depicting reality as it is? Okay.
I think people make films for different reasons. Some do it for entertainment, some for edutainment, and some basically just to make films to tell a story in one way or the other. But I would say when you make a film, it influences or it triggers something in someone's mind one way or the other. So with the films coming full of violence within Kenya, well, I think to some extent it does affect people. Some might want to, human beings are curious beings. So in one way or the other, someone might want to try out something they saw in a film. This was a joke that was being made back at home about people watched a TV series called Prison Break, and people are breaking out of prison and all that. I'm not quite sure whether you've watched it. But then there was some prisoners tried to break from prison in one of the maximum security prisons in Kenya. And people started making joke that, that's Prison Break Kenya version. So I'm not quite sure whether that affected it or not, but in one way or the other, I believe when you make a film, it affects somebody. Yeah, so a filmmaker might choose to do violence or not, but interesting enough is there's some scenes that we saw in Nairobi Half-Life, and you're seeing how people were stealing and, you know, running away, and you become a bit cautious around those streets, and it makes you aware that these things exist, so you need to take precaution. And then choosing to be violent or to become a robber because you saw it in a film, I think that's a personal choice. Thank you.
What it does raise, let me just add on to what he said, that there was a lot of debate after Nairobi Half-Life about crime in Nairobi especially, and in Kenya as a whole. And it was also on social media, it was actually in forums, in film festivals where it was showing, in screenings where it was showing. And that is one way I would say it directly impacts people. It generates debate, and I think that's what films should do. If we don't solve it in the film, then it should be enough to generate a debate that will actually get a solution.
Yeah, I want to ask you guys, what are the challenges you face when making movies in Kenya, apart from the funds, and what are maybe the bureaucracy in Kenya? I don't know, maybe in some African countries, they based on the theme, because if you're making a film involving the cultural things, or maybe because some cultural things are attached like political things, so, and the country will want it to be viewed, you know, to the outside world. So what's the bureaucracy there, and how are these sort of things influencing you guys, maybe in one way or the other?
Okay, I'll try and answer this because I don't necessarily run a production company, but I can give my perspectives as a filmmaker. That at this point, you could argue that the government has various levels of controlling filmmaking. Let me just say that. For starters, we don't necessarily have a film fund in Kenya, which is supposed to be there actually. We have a Kenya Film Commission, but we don't have that fund really revolving amongst filmmakers, okay? To get a license is pretty easy, I would say. So long as you have the money and you have a goal that you want to achieve, then that's straightforward, and can get the proper licensing from the council and also the film commission, and you're able to shoot, so long as you have the equipment. So I wouldn't say it's restrictive, but it does have limitations in terms of if you don't have the resources to make it happen. And I would say that the government, yes, has the ability to create the environment to make filmmaking easier to do, but there are a few challenges. I would say the government, in some sense, maybe is not very interested in creating a stronger fund and so on and so forth. We do have a film festival, which could possibly benefit from more support from the government. But one thing I would say right now is that we've never been at a more exciting time in filmmaking and TV making, let me say, in Kenya. Because over the past 5 to 10 years, there's been a high number of filmmakers coming up, a high number of producers, writers are coming into the fore. The whole scene of making TV series and films is actually becoming much bigger because Kenyans actually want to watch local content. And that market has grown exponentially over the past 5 years. And that has spurred the growth of people wanting to make movies right now. And I know friends right now who are actually doing better, who are actually wanting to make documentaries and movies, and they're actually earning more money. Okay, so right now I would say the market is actually growing. There's never been a more exciting time to be making a film in East Africa right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'd just like you to give us a perspective on how you're benefiting from the new ICTs, especially from Kenya. I mean, I've been away from home a long time, but I hear now, you know, you have, what is it Konza City or and this iHub, or and how are you benefiting in the film industry from these new technologies? I mean, are you able to capitalize on them in reaching for other audiences?
I would say from what I have seen, and I think maybe Katya can talk a bit about Nairobi Half-Life, because I think there was a big follow-up in terms of social media on Nairobi Half-Life. But what I can say is that it's been much easier to do digital. Like the other day, a friend of mine actually launched a short film online, and he had a build-up leading up to that on social networks, and and there was actually a premiere online. So it's much easier right now to actually shoot a movie, edit it, and premiere it without me coming to a physical location like this one. And it's much cheaper for me, and people will still get to see it. And I would say that right now, I think Kenya has one of the largest numbers of people on Twitter. Facebook is quite popular, and other social media platforms. And I think right now, I would say that we are making the most use of these digital platforms to actually get our movies out there. And we try as much as possible, once we actually create something, to follow it up on Twitter and on Facebook and generate some more content interaction and so on and so forth. We have, what shall I call it? There's something called a Creatives Garage, actually, that's held in Nairobi, for example, where we actually have filmmakers coming in such a kind of forum and watching one of our movies, and we are able to have this kind of discussion after the movie, and thereafter, even the discussion goes on social networks. So I would say right now, with the digital migration and people having internet on their phones, it's so much bigger right now.
I think, well, Simon has said everything that one can say about Facebook and Nairobi Half-Life. It really went well for it, and we can use it as it's a not cost-intensive channel in order to reach an audience. And but I think it also poses the next question that would also lead too far to discuss it here. But what filmmakers, now that they do have quite cheap means to realize their films, and they can easily address an audience, they're now confronted with the next problem, that they somehow also maybe have to earn back the money they have put into making that film. And this then poses questions of how do you distribute your film, how do you make it available at one end, but how do you also make money from it, because at least it has to cover the cost, even if they don't want to earn a fortune. And this is, I think, a very interesting topic also that's coming up in Kenya right now. So, for instance, we're hearing it from requests like, I would like to buy Nairobi Half-Life. I know I can buy a pirated copy somewhere at the street corner. I would want to have a legal copy. Where can I do that? And these kinds of requests are coming more and more, and there's an awareness for that. And we're, of course, also, like, whenever we travel with our films, that's one of the topics we also try to address and find solutions, not only for our films, but also see what kind of collaborations we can find with other filmmakers to bring the films out there, but also make sure they're not given away for free if they are not supposed to be given away for free.
Hi, yeah, I just want to commend you for such an amazing work you're doing down there in Nairobi. And so the creative sector, my friend Paul spoke this morning. It's an African government's problem, because they don't see the value either culturally or economically in the creative sector, or in investing it. Well, albeit the Nigerian federal government now, who's actually for the first time in the 21 years of the filmmaking industry, are setting up some sort of structure to support filmmakers. And obviously that came about from the discussions of the filmmakers themselves with the federal government. I want to see you guys as pioneers of Kenyan filmmaking industry. It's a food for thought as well. Maybe it's important. Maybe it's something you guys need to start thinking about as your role in creating a change in the attitude of the government by deciding to make films that address these issues. Yes, we can depict any other issues, crime rate and things like that, but maybe it's important now, even if now that you have support to be able to do that, start writing scripts and maybe start dialoguing with the government to create platforms, distribution frameworks, infrastructures, capacity building, using this opportunity you have, you've tapped into this, to World Cinema Funds and One Day Films, and start using that platform to create a dialogue between your government and up-and-coming filmmakers. I don't know if something in the pipeline of what you guys want to do in the future. I guess it's a question and suggestion at the same time.
It's happening. We're keeping our fingers crossed. That's all we can say.
Sebastian hasn't spoken today. Just I mean, I don't know what expectation you had before coming in here. I don't know, you want to say something about your role in this all kind of setup?
I think I was in a similar situation than like what Sven said. I didn't expect anything, and I was not prepared to go there. It was, on a short notice, pretty much. And when I got out to Kenya the first time, like when I got out of the airport, I was asking myself, like, what is my prejudices, and what is the things that I think I know about this place? And I was shocked. I was shocked about that. The pictures that I had in my head came like from kindergarten times, and like posters and like collecting for like religious groups, collecting for money for like bread for the world and stuff like that. And so that was a reality check for me to see like what it is about. And then I got into this filmmaking process, and I had the chance to completely experience what Kenya means and what Africa means. I only have been to Kenya, so Africa is, for me, right now it's just Kenya. I didn't experience anything more than that. But I think what was really interesting, I was experiencing Kenya through the movie first, because in editorial you hardly ever get to see anything. So we got the footage into the editorial, and things that were happening in the movie, I later found in, like when I got out of the editorial, I later found on the streets, and like I got to see the pictures outside of the movie too. And that was a really interesting experience, and I think it proves to me that the picture that we are making is about the real thing. It's like we're not showing something that's not there. Obviously, we have fictional stories. We're not documenting real life, but we're taking real life experience and make it into something that is entertaining, but also raises questions. And that's pretty much what I experienced. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. Thank you for opening my eyes about film, about this kind of art. I'm totally a layman when it comes to film, to filmmaking. But my exposure during these 3 days, during the past 3 days, has opened my eyes as to the role of film, the media, in cultural diplomacy. But listening to your discussion, especially the question raised by Ms. Sarika Lakhani, what is cultural diplomacy? To me, that's very profound. I am a lawyer, so I can dissect. You know, my thinking is that, based on what I hear, it's impressed upon me that cultural diplomacy is never your main motivation. But because as filmmakers, you are aware of your social responsibility, I believe that the films you make, especially when they deal with social issues, serve as eye-openers. In this case, you are performing the role of cultural diplomats. Cultural diplomacy is a derivative consequence of what you're doing in expressing in pursuing your passion. That's it. Thank you.
That was a great setup out there. I really commend you guys for what you're doing. And the question I want to ask, it was mentioned that over 500 applications have been received and stuff like that. So the question I'm throwing out there is, probably she'll be able to answer since she was the one that said it. how do you encourage filmmakers who have sent in applications, at the end of the day, they don't get sent through the final stages? Now, how do you encourage them to keep on? Because when people get discouraged, okay, I've put in an application and I didn't go through, I didn't get accepted. What's the sustainability in then encouraging these people that regardless of the fact that you didn't pass through the first stage, there's still an opportunity for you in future? Another question is, how are you connecting with Kenyans in the diaspora who are up and coming filmmakers? Is there a collaboration with Kenyans back home and Kenyans outside Kenya, wherever they are, maybe in America, in Europe, or Asia, wherever they're spread about in the world? So these young filmmakers, is there a collaboration there between Kenyan filmmakers back home and Kenyans in the diaspora to keep on improving the system, the structure that you've set up in, for the Kenyan community?
I think Simon is the best example to what happens when you don't get in the workshop in the first place. I mean, he mentioned that he tried it. I think with filmmaking, it's really difficult. I think as every artist, because you need to pretend that you know what you're doing, and you are fighting for something which is not existing, which is your vision, which is somewhere in your head, and unless you have done it, nobody knows about it. And all the way through doing it, you have to pretend that it's there and that it's worth it. And when I went to film school here in Berlin, and just to answer, that gentleman has left, but he was asking about the technical things. I mean, I went to a film school here in Berlin where people have everything. They have, I mean, it's one of the most expensive things to study in Germany. And look at the films which come from there, and look at the films which, other people are making. It's not a question of how much you have in terms of technical equipment. And I think it is in every filmmaker, wherever they are, whether they are in Germany, whether they are in Iceland, whether they're in Denmark, whether they're in Kenya, whether they're in Mozambique or Asia, or I mean, it's all over the world. You need to have a vision, and you need to fight for it, and you need to, and people do that in different ways. And it's I think the struggle of every artist, not only in filmmaking. And I honestly have to say, it's really not our organization's job to keep people motivated. We provide the platform, but the motivation needs to come, and the vision. I'm more interested in the vision. Needs to come from that person. If I keep on motivating, I don't need to motivate these people. It's not my job. We create a platform so they can show their visions. And the second part of your question was the diaspora. That is, I guess, something which the Kenyan filmmakers can more answer, because our organization, we only train African filmmakers. So in order to apply to the One Fine Day film workshops, you need to have an African citizenship and an African residency, because there are other programs who support other people. We have decided that that's what we do. So, but they're more diverse, and every initiative has their own focus, and that's what we do. But